All right, thanks for joining me for another Spin That Shit podcast. Today we have Mose Wilson with us. Great artist, good guy. We're going to talk about this new self-titled album he's got coming out here in November. It's got 11 tracks on it. There's a few songs out there already. You might have already heard them. They're streaming. Good tunes, but I can tell you firsthand, I've been able to listen to the record from front to back more than once, and it's good. He's got some hot stuff on here. I think everyone's going to enjoy it. Especially if you like country, mixing it with a little bit of bluegrass and bluesiness to it. I think you're going to enjoy it. We're going to talk about several of those songs and learn more about Mose. But first, I want to say thanks to all the subscribers, people liking and sharing and commenting. We're making a little bit of noise now with this podcast, so it's been fun. So we're going to continue to grow. We're on all social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, of course. So let's continue that progress. Let's go talk to Mose. All right, man. How you been?
Been good.
Good. You've been busy, I can tell.
Been real busy.
Been in the
But
snow.
I've had all day today off. Do what?
I said you were up in the snow, and now you're down in the sand, then you're back home.
Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of a crazy difference there. It snowed the first night in Alaska, and it was extremely hot in Florida. So now I'm like in between. I'm back in Tennessee fall weather. It's nice.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, I like to start these basically just kind of a background info about yourself and, you know, your influences, how you grew up, and that good stuff.
Cool. Well, I was born in Winchester, Tennessee, right in Middle Tennessee on the Alabama-Tennessee border, and grew up in Cowan, Tennessee, which is just like 10 minutes away from there. And basically for like 5 generations on either side of my family, they've always been there. I was the first one to kind of get out and do something else. But really, you know, I guess as far as my musical influences go, a lot of it just comes from the church I grew up in when I was a little kid. I started leading singing when I was 5, and
Really?
it was an all a cappella church. We didn't have any musical instruments, and
That's cool.
yeah, it was all right. I wish I could have played guitar there because I started playing guitar a little after I got my first guitar at 6 and really didn't start playing until about 8, but I never could take it, you know, to church and play. So I was learning stuff elsewhere, learning blues and country music. And
Yeah.
but
No one else in your
yeah.
family played musically?
Not like that. My mom is a classically trained pianist, and she was really good. Like in high school, she won like several competitions, like statewide competitions and stuff, but only classical music. I tried to teach her the blues one time and it didn't work out.
She wasn't
She can sing
boogie-woogieing
though.
on there.
No, not unless she was reading it. You could put a boogie in front of her and she could read it note for note. But if I started yelling chords out at her, yeah, it was out the door. So
That's great. So when did you leave that area of Tennessee?
well, I stayed, you know, I went all through high school there at Franklin County High School, and I started my first band when I was 12 there, and you know, we would play like, you know, little festivals around town or county fairs or like talent shows, stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, when I graduated high school, I moved to Nashville, and I went to school for one semester while I was here, and hated school. I really wasn't even hardly working at it at all. I'd started getting some gigs on Broadway that same semester, and I was just spending all my time like trying to hang out down there and get what work I could and be around players.
Yeah.
And I stayed until about 2021, and man, it was just tough. I wasn't really ready for the city life, and I wasn't able to play the music, that I was writing, and I was having to gig on this top 40 stuff, and I didn't really grow up on that. I grew up on old music, and so I decided one summer I was just going to go down to the beach and work on the beach. I had some friends that did beach chairs, and they said they could hook me up with the job, and man, I went down there and worked all summer. And actually, I was working at the Hilton down in Sandustin, and they kept me on all the way through Halloween. And I was the only employee that they kept that long. But
Gosh.
but I stayed there and started the band there, and stayed for almost 7 years. I was down on the Gulf, and I lived in Pensacola, and I had a few stints in Mobile and New Orleans, and I put a band together down there called Hotel Oscar. And so we toured pretty extensively and put 3 records out. And it was all like funk and soul and like maybe a little Southern rock, no country music. But and players from like Mobile and New Orleans and some cats from Pensacola, but it was still me writing everything, and I was singing and playing guitar. But at one point we had like a 7-piece band and had 3 horn players and a great keys player. The drummer now actually is he just joined Tedeschi Trucks, and so he's touring with them. And one of the sax players, Chris Spees, he's touring with Marcus King now.
Oh man.
And they were great, man. I learned a lot from those guys.
Yeah. So it sounds like you pretty early on when you were younger, you knew that you were going to try and do something with music in your life.
Yeah. It's been the
seems
biggest
that way.
love, yeah, I've ever had. I played football and I love that, and sports and stuff. But yeah, music was really the only thing I ever really was gonna do.
Yeah.
Not that way. So sometimes it's a blessing, sometimes it's a curse.
I feel like I don't know. I always cursed my mom and dad for not putting a guitar in my hands when I was a kid or something, but I played like sports nonstop. So that's useless now. I'd much rather be picking a banjo or something.
Yeah.
So.
Uh-oh. It says my internet connection is unstable. How's it doing now?
I can hear you. We'll keep it going.
I'm seeing everything fine. It just said that.
Oh yeah, it's storming here pretty good, so we might lose connection here. Wouldn't be the first time. We're a pretty laid back show. We'll just piece it together if it doesn't work.
You're over in Cookeville?
No, I'm in Indy.
Oh.
Well, south of Indy in Greenwood. So
okay. Right on.
Yeah, I ran over to at Birds Creek is where I talked to you over in was that Crossville?
Yeah.
Crossville. Yeah, that was a good time.
For some reason, I guess I just met people from Cookeville and thought that you were with that group or something for some reason. But yeah, man. Actually, all the Wilsons originally came from Crossville, and I connected with some family that weekend. It was pretty cool.
That's right. You were telling me about that. You were going to go meet up with all that.
Yeah, man. I saw the old home place. They've had it since the Revolutionary War when they first settled down there. And 8 generations of Wilsons have lived there. It's pretty nice.
I think you put some pictures of you. Didn't you play for them? Play some songs for them?
Yeah. They had a big get together, and like over 100 people came out. I don't think they were all kin to me, but
that's great.
But a lot of them were. It was cool, man.
Yeah, that's like a homecoming, historically. Sure, that was a good one to play.
It was, and we've stayed in touch. They just had a big molasses day down there, and I was on the road. I think actually I might have been in Alaska when they did that, but my folks went over and did it and said it was awesome. And
yeah,
they still have the the original, moonshine recipe. So some of that was getting passed around too.
Yeah, got to.
Yeah, man.
But well, we should probably talk about this album that you got ready to come out.
Yeah,
November 5th, right? Is that when
November
it comes?
5th, the whole
Good.
thing drops.
11 tracks. I was saying that I've been able to hear it a couple times from front to back at work and stuff, and man, it's good. You got some bangers on there for sure.
Thanks, man. It was
um,
fun doing.
the "Don't Need You" that song. I think you did the right choice picking that one as kind of like single coming out with the little music video.
Yeah,
What can you tell me about that song? Is that
man. So that was actually, I've been writing for this album, I guess, for over 5 years, maybe 6 years now. Some of them are that old, but "Don't Need You" was actually the last one written. Um, I hadn't had that tune very long at all. Actually, I guess last year, uh, right before the pandemic kicked off, was when I wrote it. Watching the Super Bowl, I was supposed to go over to a buddy's house and watch the Super Bowl, and I was newly single at the time, and had just gotten into a new spot, and oddly enough, this song really wasn't about my personal life at the time. It actually stemmed from something else, but the idea was there that, like, that I didn't need the girl, but I needed all these other things, or I just needed to quit thinking about her. And man, I missed the whole game. I just sat there and wrote the song, and couldn't get out of it. I was just looking at the paper, had the guitar in my hands, and then finally, when it was done and I felt good about it, I looked up and it was like the end of the fourth quarter. So I called and was like, "Man, I'm sorry. I got involved in the song and couldn't get away from it."
tell them
But
to
yeah,
record it and you'll be over when you're done?
yeah, yeah. And then even still, like, after the record came out, I didn't know what I wanted to come out with, at the gate, because I feel like the first impression is a big one. And
Yeah,
and I just went with it because it was fun, and it was still sad, which is country music, but it's a
right.
barn burner, and so I feel like there was something there kind of for everybody. If you like the sad country tunes, or if you like the super hot picking, like, it's kind of got all that going on.
Yeah, it's got a good drive to it.
Yeah, man. The band that cut it, like, that was all cut in one take. It was just, it was really awesome getting to be in a room with some of the best in Nashville, which in my opinion is the best in the world.
Yeah,
But man, like, it was kind of a dream come true in a way.
right.
And
And
uh and that music video was a lot of fun too. That was actually my hometown. I don't know if you've got a chance to check that out, or
yeah,
not, but
yeah, I watched it.
right on.
Is that your dog?
Yeah, it's my sister's dog, actually. Rudy is his name,
Yeah,
and and he's not even two yet. He did pretty good to, like,
it's already a
let us.
canine
Yeah,
superstar.
yeah, man. He's a good dog. He had a good time too. I think I had plenty of treats for him, so he was enjoying himself.
Yeah. Um, then you followed it up there with "On Blue." That's out now, streaming, right?
Yeah,
Those are the only two that the public has heard so far, right?
yeah. Those are the only two tracks released, um, and Blue was probably it, and one other, two other songs are my favorite on the record. Um, and Man, it just turned out really, really beautiful. The way everybody played it and approached it, and the singing on it was awesome.
Yeah, I like today when I went to lunch. To me, when you're listening to music like in depth, you got to listen to it loud. So I cranked it up and I was just cruising. And when you say "I'm blue," the blue note where you kind of hold a little bit and break in the voice,
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know, man. It just gets you. That's a good sign
yeah,
there.
man. Thank you. I worked really hard at trying to make sure I sounded good singing it, but it helped a lot having Mary and Johnny Meyer, they're siblings, and they grew up in a bluegrass family band together, and they both agreed to come and cut it. So like having that blood harmony.
That's what I was getting ready to say.
It was special, man. It was cool. And they liked it too. I think the fact that they enjoyed the song, you can hear that in it also.
Yeah.
And
now after hearing your background and where you've came from and traveled to and lived and stuff, now that album even makes more sense to me. You got your Louisiana Two Step on there.
Yeah.
And some more bluegrassy songs versus the country and then the blues mix. It's well rounded. You got a good balance there. I think people are going to really like this.
Man, that I was kind of worried about it first. I was afraid I was going too many places with it, and actually the guy that produced it with me and also engineered the whole thing, Matt Coles, he kind of was just like, man, I think it works, and if you want to go super bluegrass on a tune and you want to go 90s country honky tonk on the tune, he's like, they still seem to vibe together in it. And
yeah, it works for at least for you. Some people, I don't think can pull that off sometimes, but it seemed to flow really nice.
So man,
I like the Tennessee Rag a lot too.
Yeah,
now, you've had that one for a while. I remember seeing an older video on that song.
Yeah, that was one I wrote before I moved back to Nashville. I was still living in Florida, and
okay.
And so it's to me, it's got a lot of New Orleans blues influence in it. Kind of the structure of the song and even the groove is pretty driving, and we tried to throw that classic New Orleans blues ending on it too. And but honestly, I was kind of that was around the time I was contemplating moving back to Tennessee. Because man, I had established myself down there and I was getting tons of work and, making a good living. And I was living in a trailer in the swamp and it was awesome, man. It was like paradise. And I was only like a mile from the Gulf and there's some great players down there. And so, but I had really gotten back into country music and it's not as popular down there as it is up here. And I thought my band was breaking up. And so in 1 week, I wrote like 10 country songs and about 5 of them made it on the record. And I wish I could still do that. I wish I don't know what happened in that amount of time, but I was like, man, I can't just sit down there and grind them out anymore. Maybe it was just because it was so fresh, but that was one that came out of it. And I remember jamming that with my buddy, Mark Gillespie. And he had just moved back down there. He had been in Nashville for 27 years and had played not lead. He was Trace Adkins' rhythm guitarist for 17 years.
Damn.
And had just come off that gig and had gotten married and was just wanting to kind of not live the Nashville life anymore. He was wanting to kind of, I won't say retire, but he was ready to kind of take it easy. He was in his 50s at that point. And
right.
But one night, man, we used to hang out at his place all the time, and he'd live right down the road from me, and we would either he would come off a gig or I would, or we both would, and we'd meet up there, and we would just pick and drink and smoke until the sun came up. And man, we did it all the time, and I remember one night we were doing a shot of tequila, and I was showing him that song, and he just looked at me and said, "Man, what are you doing?" And I said, "Wait, I'm about to take this shot of tequila." And he said, "No." He said, "What are you doing down here?" He's like, "The Gulf's always going to be here, but you're young and you're in the country." It's like, "You got to go back to Nashville." And him saying that to me, that was it.
That was the light bulb.
Right then, I was just like, all right, now I'm going to start making moves to get back to Nashville. So
that's awesome.
So that's what I think about when I'm playing that song. And man, I still love to go down there and hang out with him anytime I get. But
right.
He's a dad now. He's loving life. He's the man. So.
What's your favorite song on the album, you think? Or do you really have one?
And it changes all the time. I did an interview for a magazine not long ago, and said that Cornered was because in the last yeah, actually ever since the pandemic kicked off, I've just become obsessed with bluegrass music, and I never really was that much before. Um, Cornered actually started off as more of a southern rock song. There's a video online of my first country band down in Florida playing it, and it's a totally different song. But and I wasn't gonna put it on the album, but I, I was digging on some Jimmy Martin, and I was just like, man, I wonder if I could like get a tune with like this kind of intensity, like Freeborn Man. I was like, I wonder if Cornered would work like that. And it was literally like the week of recording the record that I worked that up and
Really?
worked it out, and it made it cool, man. So
I like it
uh,
too. That one's another. I mean, they're all good in their own ways, but that one's got some real hot picking on there. I like the
yeah,
speed on there.
yeah. Casey on the fiddle was he was a monster on that thing. Casey Driscoll, and I think that one and This Time It's You really turned out nice, and that was the very first country song I wrote when I was decided that I was going to get away from the band that I was in and funk music and start playing country. And man, it came out fast. Like I just sat down and just was like, I want to write a country song. How would I write a country song? And 10 minutes later, that song was done. But
Man, people are gonna hear this and be like, "Man, I wish it was that easy for me." Shit.
hey, I wish it still was, man. Now I'm sitting here and I hadn't wrote a song in like 6 months, and I'm like, the record's done. I'm gonna have to get some more music together. But I think maybe that's part of it too. You can't like do it all the time, but if you allow yourself, enough time away from it, and then you get back into the writing, then you've got some fresh ideas, and you're not
Right.
burned out. And so, but yeah, that one turned out awesome. And Dan Dugmore on steel was something real special. Dan, I want to say he was 73 when we cut that, because we cut that last year, the whole thing in the pandemic, and he was the only guy that overdubbed. Because of COVID, he didn't feel comfortable being in the room with everybody,
Right.
especially his age. And I don't know that he's had health problems, but maybe. But man, he's a staple in Nashville. I mean, there's just countless records that he's been on. I was going down the list the other day, just checking it all out. But he started off with James Taylor and Linda Ronstadt. He was a California guy that came to Nashville eventually.
Yeah.
But he's the one that's doing the pedal steel on Blue Bayou,
Okay.
and so like I still hear a lot of that. He still sounds the same to me, like on Blue and on This Time It's You. Those are kind of in the same vein of that country song, and man, he's just like he nailed it. Like I feel so blessed to have a Dan Dugmore part on my record. It's awesome.
It is. So what? So when this releases, is there plans behind it? Are you like going on tour, or you know what's next?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as it's released, I'm actually playing a festival the next day down in Atlanta called Chomp and Stomp, and it's a bluegrass festival. So I'm going to play with a bluegrass band, but we're going to do my tunes, and then I'm doing a Texas run right after that. I think 2 days later we're playing in Austin.
Okay.
So it's not a full on album release tour, but I've got that run in Texas. I've got several more shows in Nashville, and then I've got some Carolina dates that I'm going to do through November, and I'll go back in December. But what I really want to do, I just wanted to get the record out, and I know that the winter time is not a good time to release. So
Right.
pretty much that first week in November was what my publicist said is your last chance if you want to get it out this year. And so I kind of wanted to get it out, let people like get a taste of it, and then really set up a big tour next spring. So
Okay.
that's what I'm really working on right now, and hopefully it'll give me some time to start working on a follow up record, and as I'm out there promoting that one, also have another one in the works and get that out, sometime maybe late next year.
Yeah.
So
I'm definitely well, if you come through the Midwest, I'll be there. Yeah.
yeah,
I go to Duke's Indy a lot. I don't know if it'd be perfect for you and Hannah to come up
man,
sometime.
I've heard a lot about that place. I definitely want to do a show there sometime.
It's great. Um, we ask, I don't know how many of these shows you've watched, but most of the shows we ask, these quick kind of questions. They can be elaborate or not, but who's an artist that you would like to work with?
Man, uh,
I know it's a big one.
well, I mean, there's a lot. Uh, Jamie Johnson probably comes to mind first as just he's my favorite country singer, living country singer at least, and I think he's great, and it would be really cool to be able to cut a tune with him, or just if he wanted to cut one of my tunes or something, that'd be awesome, or go on a tour, just any kind of work with him, and
Yeah,
I'm a huge fan, and also Del McCoury, you know, he's getting older, and
he's a
I would
legend.
love to get to do something with Dale at some point. And oh man, such a legend. Um, so those would be my top two picks. Very different guys, but I love
Yeah.
them both.
What if it was anyone, even if they were dead and gone, you could still
Ooh,
like an idol that you could work with.
oh man, I feel like saying George Jones is too easy.
I
uh,
heard you cover him at Birds Creek. You did a good job.
oh man, yeah, thanks. Yeah, when I was really digging back in the country, like making it my total focus, man, that's like I couldn't get away from him. Like I was getting where I won't say I sounded like George, but there was just too much of his sound in my music. I had to like stop listening to him for a little while, find something else. But yeah, man, I love George and all those guys, man. Merle, Willie. I'm leaving Willie out too, man. He had such a huge influence on the record that I just did. Uh, Especially when we were leading up to getting the record put together, I was just going through his catalog, and man, like I don't think anybody cuts a record as good as Willie does. Like when he puts a project together and does it, man, it's songs are great, they sound great, they sound together. His writing's always fantastic, and that record Teatro, I think it came out in the late '90s, and I'm blanking on the producer now. It might come to me later, but it's such a different kind of album for him, and I really dug the the courage I feel like that he had to go in that direction. But it's a record. I don't know if you're familiar with it,
No,
but
not in depth.
it's a lot of songs that he wrote before he was Willie. You know, when he was still in Nashville trying to make it as a writer, and there were songs that like Ray Price and Farron Young were cutting, and some of them hit, some of them didn't. But what they ended up doing was he recut all these songs, and they did it with, for the most part, New Orleans musicians. And so it's still these fantastic country songs, but you've got like, marimba is like one of the lead instruments, and like, two drummers and a percussion, and they're just like playing these like New Orleans like Afro-Cuban rhythms behind these songs, and Willie's still playing his guitar and doing Willie's thing, and like, man, it's just such an awesome collaboration, and gave me a lot of like even though I went more traditional on a lot of the tunes that I cut, there's still some of that, and like the Man You Miss has a lot of that kind of groove to it, and I hope to explore that even more uh, in the future.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that album out now. Got me all curious because I
Oh
can't picture it right
man,
off. I mean, I'm sure I've heard the songs off of it here and there on like a mix, but
it's so good. It's so awesome.
okay. Next question. An instrument, if you could wake up tomorrow and just have it mastered, what instrument would it be?
Fiddle.
Yep.
And I can't play fiddle at all, and I'm not going to. but but if I could have, like, if it was something I could have started young and had a grasp on, man, that thing is, it's just so versatile, and great fiddle players just sing with it. And so yeah, that one for sure.
That's a good one.
Dobro would be cool too, but
Yeah.
I can play dobro. I'm not very good at it, but I can't do anything with the fiddle. I wish I could.
All right. The other one is off the radar music. What's something that you listen to that people wouldn't think you did? You know, a
Hmm.
different genre or artist or
Yeah, man. Well, I've given it away that I was really deep into funk and soul for a long time. And I mean, we used to do some way out there kind of stuff, like my old band. And well, actually, my sister got married a few months ago, and her request was that I get that group back together and play those songs. And it was tough. It took a lot of work. Like, I'm not going to take a gig on like that again. but it was fun to do it and go back to them. But man, we did Prince covers. We did a bunch of Parliament Funkadelic. We were doing
that is so awesome.
yeah,
I
Curtis
didn't see I
Mayfield.
didn't see that in you at first until you told me on
Oh
this
yeah,
today.
yeah, man. It's that's what I used to do. That was it. And so, like, I loved it, man. We used to do a lot of the meters, if you're familiar with them. Um, and man, I can't even think of what all else we used to do. Sam and Dave. Oh yeah, all that Memphis stuff too. I forgot Otis Redding,
Oh yeah.
but
I love Otis. Yeah.
that stuff for sure. And I still listen to it. I've just been so deep in the country and bluegrass too, that that's kind of consumed all of my listening and stuff.
Right.
And you know, last year, when I guess Spotify does their they tell you, what you listen to the most. I can't remember what the recap or whatever.
Right. Yep.
My number one song that I listened to was Claire de Lune by Claude Debussy, classical number. And so I love
Really?
Claude. I don't listen to much classical, but I wear Claude out, man. I love his stuff. It's weird, it's soothing, and it's really intense, both in the same piece. And so, like, man, there's times before where I've gotten really stoned and listened to Claire de Lune, and like, I can just, like, to me, it's a life. Like, you hear the beginning of it, and it's the beginning of a life, and in the middle, and going through the struggles, of going through the middle of your life, and the heartache and the heartbreak, but also the joy. And then finally comes back to the end, at the end of this piece. It's like the end of the life and a reflection on everything that's come before it. Man, it's beautiful. So
Man.
there for a while, I was listening to it every night to go to sleep, because I was in a dark place and dealing with some stuff, and I was having trouble sleeping. And that was, man, I could just put that song on repeat and eventually I'd be out. So
That's awesome. Then the other one, my buddy that couldn't join us tonight, Garrett, that's been on.
yeah.
We've been going back and forth on Beatles or Stones. Which one do you prefer?
Oh man. I've had time with where I was really into both, but I gotta go with the Stones, man. I just love Keith's stuff is just raw and real and very American, which to me I feel like a lot of the British bands don't really get. Like they're like a reflection of American music or an good imitation, but it's still, their thing. But man, Keith is he knows how to let it hang out, man. He's got it.
Yeah,
And,
that's my pick. We had Charlie Marks on. In fact, we're going to release that episode tonight, but he put it good. If he was just going to put something on to listen to and just kind of get lost in, he was more of a Beatles guy. But if he was going to a live show, he was picking Stones. That's kind of like where I'm at, probably.
yeah, there's value in both. That's for sure.
I got one last question for you,
All
then we'll let you go.
Right on.
That hasn't been too painful for you.
Nah, I'm enjoying it.
Good deal. What would you say you're most proud of in your musical career? That's another big question, I know.
Man. Well, so far, this record is I think it's pretty easy to say that that's it, and because of it's been the last 6 years of my life. It's been consumed in that and wanting to make sure I did it right, and I didn't want to rush anything either. When I got to Nashville, I've been here since 2018, so almost 4 years now, and and it wasn't until last year, crazily enough, my dad had gotten a hold of some demos that I had cut and had grown up with a girl that married Matt, the guy that produced it, and he just contacted her, unbeknownst to me, and just wanted to know if he could send some songs over through email, if Matt would take a listen to them, and within a month we were in the studio getting the record going, and
That's awesome.
so I don't think without that happening, and COVID played a role in that too, because we did it over at Compass, and that used to be Hillbilly Central that Waylon Jennings owned. And that's where they cut the Outlaw record, and Dreaming My Dreams was cut there. John Hartford also owned it for a while, and they cut the Aeroplane record there. So it's just a magical room. Compass Records owns it now. And because it was so slow, Matt was able to just kind of say, hey, like, let's just take the studio a few days and like, let's get in here and work this thing out. And he pretty much put the band together for me. My contribution was Dennis Crouch, the bass player, and in my opinion, he's not only the best bass player in Nashville, he's the best bass player in the world. And he's an upright bass player, and he does all of like T-Bone Burnett's stuff, and he did like the Robert Plant Alison Krauss record, if you remember that, or
Oh yeah,
and just like so many great ones, that Crazy Heart album. And so having him in there, we had actually met the year before at the American Legion. Mark Thornton, who played guitar for Jerry Reed, Mark and I had become friends, and I had got to play some shows with Mark, doing Jerry's tunes, because Jerry's just a huge influence on me. I love Jerry, and so he introduced me to Dennis, and at that time I didn't really know anything about Dennis, and since then I've learned a lot. He's the man. And man, having him in there, like, he really helped. I wrote the charts out for everybody, and I was the band leader for my own stuff, but with his assistance, like, if there was anything funky on the chart, he would call it out as we were going through it, and or if I'd over explained something, he would just say, hey, like, instead of telling the band to do all this, why don't we just say, y'all feel it out how you feel it, and man, he's a huge reason the record sounds so incredible. And it was cool having him, who's a vet, and then Miles Miller played drums, and he plays for Sturgill Simpson.
Right.
And so he's he's a younger guy. I think he's in his late 20s now, and so like having them two together from different generations, but still like finding a way to make all these tunes groove so good. And he also knew the guitarist Trey Hensley, who did all the electric work on the record. And I think Dennis has known him for a long time, and so he was really kind of helping him with direction. Not that he needed that much, but man, it was just so having them do all that, and then the way that it all came out, and yeah, it's definitely what I'm most proud of.
Yeah. I mean, now even knowing more about it and then listening to it through, like I said several times, now I know why it's so good too. I mean, you got some heavy hitters on there for sure.
Man, we cut it in 2 sessions. Crazy.
That's just crazy.
Yeah, all the acoustic stuff was cut in a session, and the sessions were supposed to be 3 hours, but everybody put in extra work, so I think they were around 5 hours a session. So we did an acoustic 5-hour session, an electric 5-hour session, and then one day I came back in and just kind of fine-tuned anything that still seemed a little funky on my end, and that was it. And I didn't even have a hand in on the mixing. I trusted Matt, and he got it back to me, and it's pretty cool. But it feels that way. It feels good that like it was so live, like it that when I play it with a band now that I'm able to, it's not hard to recreate because of that, if you have the right pieces.
It just flows, and you don't have to force anything.
And man, we did my first single release show at the American Legion last week on Honky Tonk Tuesday.
I saw that.
And the band that played on that was great. I tried to get a lot of the guys on the record to come out, but most of them were already working or on the road. But Dennis Crouch, the bass player, he came and did it. And man, like as much fun as it was playing with him in the studio, playing on stage with him was just on a whole nother level. So that's number 2 from the things I'm most proud of, getting to share the stage with Dennis Crouch.
That's great. Man.
Yeah, man.
Now you just kind of now I'm just seeing how you're going to come up with number 2.
I don't know.
You got to beat it.
It's going to be tough, but I'm ready for the challenge, and I learned a lot on this record, so
right.
Hopefully, I'll think as long as I'm keep working hard, I've got the wisdom to do it. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
But
good deal, man. Well, I appreciate you being on. I really do. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
So
thanks for having me.
Keep it up.
I really appreciate it. This is the first one of these I've done. So.
Oh yeah.
Breaking me in.
Well, for the next time when you got another record come out, we'll do it again. So.
Right on.
So you guys take care, and we'll be in touch. I'll be in Nashville here in a couple months in December. Maybe you guys will be around, catch you.
Oh yeah, I'm sure I will. I've got some dates down at Acme then. So
yeah. I was gonna come in town to see Sierra play at the Ryman.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, ain't it?
Yeah, that is a pretty big deal. But we're gonna hang out for that weekend, so I'm sure. Who knows where we'll end up? You know how that goes. It's Nashville.
Right on. So. Well, I hope to see you.
All right, man. Well, take care, and good luck on the album. I hope all the success to you.
Thanks, man.
All right. Bye.
Take it easy.